And this is another edition of Rock Talk right here on CGCM Rock Radio. My name is Bannister. Remember, this is where we talk rock because that's how we roll. And joining us this time around is Steve Redden from a hot new discovery to us here at CGCM Rock Radio, coming out of Melbourne, Australia, from the band The Vendettas. How you doing, my friend?
Good, my friend. Good morning, good evening.
Yes.
All of it
Yeah, it's Sunday morning for you there.
is Sunday morning here, 10 a.m.
And
I've got
it's
the. I apologize for any background noise. I'm on daddy duties today, and I've given the girls pancakes. So I'm told them to stay in their bedroom, but we'll see how we go.
Oh man, I've been in your shoes. I've been in your shoes,
Yeah.
man. And it's Saturday night here, 8 p.m. and I've had to lock the dog out of my
Yeah.
studio because he would love to come in and say hello. Maybe maybe another time.
We'll see.
Uh, just absolutely loving the new single "Head On Collision." That is just an amazing, amazing song. We've been playing that on CGCM Rock Radio. I played it on my show. My good buddy Eric Lussier has been featuring it on his show. Um, Great stuff. The follow up to "Also Dear," and this
Yeah.
means you've got a new album coming out.
We have. So we're in the middle of it's a bit of a different process for us with this bunch of songs. So we wrote most of these songs during COVID remotely just to keep in touch with each other. And then when we're actually allowed to see each other again, we thought, well, let's choose. We probably wrote about 40 to 50 songs over that
Oh wow!
period. Yeah, so just to keep in touch and keep ourselves sane. When we had a pretty harsh lockdown here in Melbourne where we weren't allowed to leave the house for a lot of time compared to even other states in Australia. So it was a good outlet actually, for the four of us. And yeah, so we were just cranking out the ideas and decided, look, we'll choose maybe 15 of the strongest ones and jam some, because the way we were recording was quite interesting. Is we'd all remotely record to a click track, and then when we pieced it all together, we just kind of hoped that it would sound good. So
Keep your fingers crossed.
yeah, you listen to some of the demos, and the timing of certain bits just goes a bit crazy, and it's not intentional. We're like, oh, it pulls itself back together. This was Head On was probably one of those songs actually. But then yeah, so we just got together and jammed them live, and the ones that sort of had a really good vibe, and we felt, you can just tell, I think, when you're playing an idea halfway through the song, you're either all looking at each other and nodding and smiling, or you're kind of staring at your shoes going, let's get to the end of this, and then maybe maybe that's not a great idea in the end. So yeah, we've recorded 11 tracks. Also Dear was the first single that we released, and then Head On's the second one. And then we've just finished mixing and mastering the third one, which will come out a little bit later this year, and then we'll drop the album pretty soon after that. So hopefully by the end of the year it'll all be done, and then we'll go back to writing again and maybe doing a bit of touring and all the usual caper, what's involved in the caper, as they say.
That sounds like a whole lot of fun. Musically, though, like sound wise, how different is this new album to, say, the Vendettas 3, your previous album?
Yeah, I think we definitely changed. We like to do something different with every time we record, whether that's using a new studio, using new preamps, desks, and all that kind of stuff. So this time we actually found a room. That's the coffee machine going there. I hope you can't hear that. There's going to be lots of background stuff. Just ignore it. So yeah, we believe that to get a good sounding album, the drums have to sound amazing. Like ideally everything sounds amazing, but if the drums don't sound good, you can't polish that turd, so to speak, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You can't, time we go to a mixing guy, can we do this? And then you can't do that. So we knew we needed to pull a really good raw drum sound. So Rick, our drummer, actually found this room out in a place called Werribee, which is probably about 20 k's west of the city. And there's a guy there, Mark, who's I think it's called Cavern Studios. So he's I've never met a guy like this, and I've never seen a room like this before. But Rick was just like, mate, I want to do my drums in this room. I have to do my drums in this room. I'm like, look, whatever makes you happy, man. We're planning on doing it a bit DIY,
Mhm.
but I can see when I went to see the room for the first time, I've just looked, and if you get a chance, jump on Instagram, Cavern Sound Studios. There'll be pictures of the room that this guy's been building. It's almost like a cathedral of acoustic bliss. It had a wow factor to it that we ended up going, okay, well maybe we'll do guitars here as well. And then we came back the second, you know what? I'd like to do my vocals in here as well. So we ended up tracking probably about 3 weekends there. But just yeah, I could tell when we were tracking the drums, man, like he wasn't barely hitting the skins. It was just sounding as acoustically, I've never been in a room like that before. It's absolutely amazing. So that number one, to answer your question, has been the big difference for me is the raw drum sound that we pulled. Mick Stifter, who's doing the mixings, really like when I'm saying, what have you done to the drums, man? They sound amazing. He's like, I'm not just sort of taming the beast a little bit. I'm not doing too much. So, um, so we've started like the foundation of the drums sounding great is already there in the raw recording, and so we've got a little bit experimental. I think with Head On, we pushed the bottom end harder than we've ever pushed any song before. And we're probably getting better at taking people's advice in their professional realm. So we got this mastered by Jack the Bear, Tony Mance. So he's a stalwart in the Melbourne music scene. He's done a lot of like really massive records, big rock bands throughout the 90s, 2000s. And yeah, we sent him a couple of early mixes, and he's like, "Where's the bottom end?" And I'm like, "Oh, I was thinking we needed to turn the bottom end down." He's like, "No, man, it's rock. Turn it up, crank it up." I think collectively, I said, "Look, we like to think we know what we're talking about, but I think, let the cobblers cobble, right?"
Mhm.
And so we just said, "All right, we trust you." I just backed off and said, "You guys do it." And Head On was the result, probably of Mick just saying, "All right, let's crank shit out of the bottom end and see what happens." And then you get that bass line that's coming through really cool. I think at the start, Jimmy was kind of like, "You realize my bass is really high?" And I'm like, "I love it." Every time we sort of tried to tame the bass, I'm like, "Nah, put it back up." And you can hear that Duff McKagan clankiness, crank it through.
Yeah.
I really so. Um, so we're trying to push the boundaries a little bit with what we're doing in terms of mixing and mastering. Now that we've pulled we're really happy with the raw sounds that we pulled. So yeah, the next track's a little bit of a change of pace. It's probably a bit more power poppy, but still, again, we're going to sonically trying to push the limits of where we can get to, and stop trying to compare ourselves to other bands. I think we sort of fell in a hole where, like, we love a Swedish rock band called the Helicopters, and
Yeah.
we just love them so much that we like give the guy mixing saying, "Hey man, can you make it sound like this?" Right? But it's completely sonically different to what I think suits the song. You've just got to do what the song needs. If it
Mhm.
sounds like a Beatles song, if it sounds like a Stones song, so be it. But don't go in with that preconception of what it should sound like. It's more of an afterthought. I think you mix the song for what the song needs, and then it'll end up sounding like something rather than the other way around. So yeah, a couple of changes, but it's rock at the end of the day, man. We just want to crank everything and
It's
let it do its
it's
thing.
it's funny you say that. I do radio production for CGCM Rock Radio, and that's what I always try and do. It's like mix it right to that point where it's like, okay, that's it. No more. Don't mess with it. It's done.
Yeah,
And then the other guys will be going, no, add more. Add no. Just leave it alone. Trust me, it'll sound great on the radio. You know.
there's a
And
lot of trust involved, mate. Because mixing's it's a rabbit hole, mate.
it
I
is.
think there could be still things on songs that we mixed like the very first few songs that we mixed and mastered that I'd want to go back and change, but you just gotta, you gotta let it go.
So, like I said off the top, you guys are pretty new. The Vendettas are pretty new to us here at CGCM Rock Radio. What's the backstory of the band?
So we've been kicking around probably for about 15 years here in Melbourne. So we've been through a few different formations under the Vendettas brand, but I think we probably could have had a few name changes in there, to be honest, with the divert in terms of where we've shifted from getting different members in and the songs that we've been writing. But I suppose once you have something that people kind of remember, you're a bit hesitant to change it. So, or maybe we're just lazy. I don't know. But yeah. So Jared and I have been writing together for about 15 years. And Jimmy and Rick, who the bass player and the drummer, they're the most high demand musicians in Melbourne. I think they're in about 15 to 20 other bands. So when we're looking, probably not, that's a bit of an over, but over their time, they well and truly could be in at least 10, working bands at one time. So Jimmy had actually filled in for us a few times. So when our other bass player left, he was the first port of call, and we said, "Look, man, do you want to come in and start writing songs with us, really?" And which I think we were making a bit of a shift. We were going away from sort of punky rock to a bit more, like we started, like Jared and I do most of the songwriting, although in saying that, when Jimmy joined, the first 3 songs we released were all of his ideas, which are great, right? So just trying to push the dynamics of not going, let's write a 3-minute rock song, verse, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus, solo, double chorus. It's easy to try and break free of that. I think it's difficult to do because you start to go, well, now it's getting 5 minutes, getting 6 minutes. It's just, who gives a shit, man? Just the song is the song. It could be 1 minute, it could be 15 minutes. You can't really write and try and predict what's going to work and what people are going to dig and what they're not. It's just, that's the journey of writing, and you do your bit and you throw it out into the world, and then it's all out of your control. So embracing
exactly
that, yeah.
And if the Beatles had followed that pattern, I guess you could say, we never would have gotten that little ditty at the end of Abbey Road, Her Majesty. Like 30 seconds of what I call perfection. I just love that.
Yeah, they're obviously the biggest band, I believe the best band that's ever been. But they're the perfect example of songwriting. Like sometimes you would just go, oh, I want to hear that again, but then you're like, you know what, it does what it needs to do. There's the hooks just come in and bounce in and out where they need to bounce in and out, and then that's it. So I think there's a few songs that we've written on this new album that we'll release that I think follow that mantra a little bit, where people have heard a bit and they're like, oh, is that coming back? And I'm like, no. They're like, but that's great. And I'm like, yeah, but it's the hook for the first 30 seconds of the song. It doesn't need to come back, It's going where it's going, and then that's it. So but yeah, we've been around for a while, I suppose. We've been signed to Golden Robot Records for since 3 came out, which was in 2021, I think. So getting a bit of extra help from those guys certainly help us, branch out a little bit more from Melbourne and Australia. And yeah, like we love hearing from you guys and people overseas. It's really cool that people are digging it outside of Melbourne. Yeah.
Now, maybe it's just my way of looking at things, but it seems to me that the Australian music scene right now is just absolutely on fire. I mean, every time I turn around, there's a new band. At least I'm discovering a different band. It just seems like you guys have just got a plethora of great acts going on over there now.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, I've seen it. I sort of came into the scene a little bit late. I only started singing when I was about 23.
Okay.
So most of the boys in the band had been doing the scene since they were 15, and like I remember I actually tried out as a replacement singer for the band back in 2015, and I was doing sort of solo acoustic stuff, kind of folky, country, not country, but just acoustic sort of ballady stuff. That was what I was started out doing, and I just remember rocking up to practice to seeing Jared and our previous guitarist Alex, and they were just dicking around together, and I was looking at them, and I was like, I was absolutely gobsmacked at how good they. Then basically every time we play a gig or play a show with a band I've never heard of, I'm I look at them and I'm just like, how are these guys not famous? It's just the caliber of musician. I think there's a level of where you take it seriously, and then you each hold each other to a certain level of um of not respect. What's the word? Level of commitment to the art
Right.
and to your instrument. And there are so many. I haven't seen a band where I've kind of gone, huh, yeah, they're okay for quite some time. I get blown away every time we play with the new lineup. It's Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, WA, Brisbane. The talent here is I think it's worldwide. I think once you get to a certain level of where you're holding each other accountable and taking the time to put out professional recordings, yeah, I think it's definitely here, but it's probably everywhere. You know what I mean? There's a little diamond in the rough to be discovered every day.
Excellent. Now,
Mm.
before we wrap things up here, just a couple more questions for you here. If I was to come over to your place and start digging through your music collection, is there one album I'd kind of come across and go, Steve, explain this? like a guilty
I was
pleasures
just
album.
my record collection is just here, so let me have a look. I did get put onto something crazy from a friend of mine that I haven't listened to this yet. So they are called. Can you see that? These guys are like they're called Heilung, I think it
Okay.
is, and it's all basically. Oh, I'm gonna get this wrong, and someone's gonna hate me for it. They're called Heilung. I believe they're Norwegian. I believe
Okay.
they're and it's all basically like it's like Viking music. So lots of chanting, not so much singing like classic rock stuff at all.
Mhm.
But yeah, he showed me a concert of it, and I was digging through a crate the other day, and I saw that. So I'm like, I'm waiting for him to come over so we can have a few red wines and chuck it on and spin out. But yeah, that's probably the most interesting thing I've got in my collection. Where you're like, what? People pull it out and go, "What's this?" And I'm like, "Let's chuck it on." Lots of chant, lots of yeah. We're summoning. When I turn it up to a certain volume, I feel the clouds are coming over, and we're summoning some sort of beat.
Summoning the
But I
Norse
reckon,
gods.
yeah. Norwegian Viking gods.
All right. And before we go, I like to do a little thing called this or that, just a couple of rapid fire questions. And A or B, you give me your answer on that. So, would you prefer hot wings or spicy chili?
Oh, I'm Indian background, so chili all the way.
Are you a summer or winter guy?
I'm a summer guy.
Video games or board games?
Definitely video games.
Watching movies at the theater or watching movies at home?
I'm gonna go at home because I'm like my creature comforts.
There you go. And of those creature comforts, does that include either popcorn or nachos with those movies?
Oh, nachos all the way. I feel like
Absolutely.
now that you've just said that.
And finally, the big dividing factor here: pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
I am, but I also like chicken on pizza, and I'm married to an Italian, and that's a big no-no apparently. So I wouldn't follow my rules, but it's a free for all. chuck whatever you want.
All right, Steve, thank you for joining us here on another edition of Rock Talk right here on CGCM Rock Radio. Guys, you got to check out the Vendettas. What's your website, Steve?
So it's www.thevendettas.com.au, I believe. I think we just did an overhaul of it. So good timing. But otherwise, yeah, you can check. Our tag is the Vendettas Rock. So on Instagram, Facebook, and all the other forums.
Excellent.
Yeah. Good to talk to you.
All right. Thank you for joining us. And thank you for joining us on this edition of Rock Talk right here on CGCM Rock Radio.